Chapter 82. His Girl Jane. From Wednesday through Friday, Sam would try spending some time with his girl Jane. He'd take her to the park, where she'd complain about her mother's drinking problem. He'd take her to a fancy restaurant, where she would complain about her father's overbearing and sometimes violent temper. He'd take her to the movies, where she would complain about her sister's unhappy marriage. He'd take her to the beach, where she complained about her crazy brother in prison. Even though not much of a personality to be around, Jane Gladstone was at least a looker. She was a tall, statuesque woman with long, flowing red hair, milky white skin, and large, well-rounded tits. That even made other broads turn their heads to gawk at, in disbelief. Most days, Sam's loins would start aching red as he stared at her knockers, while of course Jane would continue babbling about her stupid, lousy family. So on some nights, he'd take her home with him, and as the ditzy woman would start flapping her mouthpiece, he'd try to make a move on her. One night, he had taken her to one of those road to someplace or another Bing Crosby and Bob Hope movies, since Sam had seen the gals were all swooning for him. Bing, not Bob. What broad would ever swoon over that cornball, I ask you? And he figured taking Jane to one might get her into the mood. Unfortunately, his plans didn't prove to work out too well, as he started kissing her on the lips, down to her neck, then over to her tits. He then looked back up into her eyes to see a demure and confused look on her face, like she didn't know what was going on, nor what he was doing. Then as he tried to get her to go down on him, Jane then grew an even more confused look, as her eyes bulged out like some virgin maidens would, which she isn't, looking like she was wondering why he was trying to move her head over to his crotch. Are you kidding me? She really has no clue what I want her to do now. Has this broad ever had any of her girlfriends teach her about a thing or two about stuff like this? This ditzy damn broad is killing me. Then Sam realized it might have had something to do with Jane not having any friends to begin with. Except for her looks, she was just that bland and uninteresting. She was built for sex, but had the mind of an 8-year-old. Except when it came to complaining, then she had the mind of an old nag. Sam was beginning to feel completely hollow and pointless around this woman. There was just no way of building up any passion nor lust toward her, because the woman just wasn't born with the hormones. Seeing this, Sam began to feel like he was dating a mannequin, and he began to wonder why he was even dating this damn dame at all. Damn prude. Every damn woman in my life has been just another example of how worthless they are to us in the end. No good and worthless. And if they ain't the lousy bunch of good-for-nothing ditzy dames, they're evil, I tell you. Evil. I remember when I was 18 years old, when I had my cherry pop. It was with this harpy of a woman. Actually, the story begins earlier when I was 14. Dopey, stupid kid I was back then in middle school, who fell for a freckled redheaded girl. I got a thing for redheads, named Lucille. She was really a good-looking gal, but in a funny way. She looked like some wooden puppet you'd find with a ventriloquist act, meaning she had all the characteristics simply of a wooden puppet, with her eyes all wide and open with pupils that would only move horizontally, rosy red cheekbones all stiff and stuck in smiling position, making her smile look like that of a dastardly villain from some movie, which really should have been my first clue. She was no good, really should. And when she opened her mouth, she started flapping it open and shut, making everything she say sound exaggerated. But even still, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, I guess. Even with all those funny features, I felt keen for her and started carrying a torch for her and tried to get her attention every chance I got. Boy, was she the direct and mean type. I'd go up to her and try chatting her up, shooting the bull, doing anything to get her to look at me. But she just brushed me off like it was dandruff on her shoulder. That and one time, she did look at me and just said, "Go away, you ugly cornball, shoo, get," and picked up a janitor's broom and started hitting me with it. like I was some pesty rat, which made all the kids around laugh at the sight. You have to love children. What you have is basically a person without any inhibitions, which allows them to express their true nature to the fullest. And when you have truly evil people, you only truly see how evil they really are when they're children, at least on the surface. But anyways, I was such a clueless, gullible little moron back then that I continued to try and go after this no-good, lousy dame, even after failing multiple times as she kept giving me the brush. And I remember I used to have daydreams in the classroom where I was going to perform the one great feat to show her how much I loved her. Well, how a 14-year-old sees love, I guess. A daydream was she would get kidnapped by a bunch of mobsters, by the likes of Jimmy Cagney, who would all then try to force her into prostitution. And what I would do is go at them and try to save her. Silly kid and their silly imaginations. Damn mobsters kidnapping a little girl and forcing her into... I killed myself thinking about how dumb and silly I was. I'd keep having these ignoramus daydreams, and the point of the fantasy, I guess, was I would rush in to save her and die trying. And the fantasy was I had to die. I had to. Showing her how much I was willing to sacrifice just to let her know how much I really felt about her. How brave I was, how tough I was, all the things I really... Sam had a pause then, but then went back to his story. And the idea of dying for her felt like the greatest privilege and honor that could ever be bestowed upon me. As long as she saw it and understood how much I cared. What a chump I was back then. What a chump. Sam then began frowning the length of the Mississippi River as he got really depressed. So fucking stupid. Damn, was I a stupid little moron back then from dreaming up such nonsense. Damn, was I so. And all for what? An evil, heartless bitch like her? Sam didn't remember what happened next. Of all the lousy, stupid things to do then, I then thought maybe, if I told her this little fantasy of mine, maybe it would win her over. Oh, was I a moron back then that deserved having what happened next? For when I told her, there was this pause as the stupidity of it all sank in. She looked at me straight, started hacking up a loogie, and then spat straight into my face and began laughing like some devil woman would. That did something to me there. My stupid little 14-year-old heart broke right then and there, and if you ask me, I deserved it. But at the time, I felt like slamming my fist into her face as hard as I could. I felt it. I felt like doing it so bad, so fucking bad. But I didn't, even though I should have. Now that I think about it, she's just a stupid dame. And when they're like that, men need to set them straight. Well, anyways, years passed and I wasn't such a little moron anymore. But I sorta was whenever it came to them. That bitch set me all crooked with dames. I just couldn't build up much interest in them anymore. That is until I confronted her again. About the time I was graduating, she had some football quarterback as her boyfriend, which she used to flaunt around to the other gals to make them jealous. Some square-jawed, 6'2", blonde as hell, pretty boy, with a chest all puffed up and flying high like some Goodyear blimp. Well, whatever. I couldn't care less. I hadn't talked nor looked at her in years. But then all of a sudden, she started noticing me around and started staring at me while I would ignore her. At the time, I was a real hot-headed punk kid, really no good. And I would knock anyone's block off they even said hello to me in the wrong way. At the time, I didn't know why she was all of a sudden paying attention to me because I had zero interest in her and cared less about that whole high school thing that goes on over proms and school spirit and whatever other meaningless crud teenagers like to come up with. I was more interested in politics and the stuff that was going on in the real world, not the phony world teenagers built for themselves in high school, living in a damn fantasy inside a bubble that's eventually going to burst once they graduate and head out into the real world. I cared about the stuff happening in Germany and Japan And in Russia with the Soviets and the possibilities of another world war. That's what's important. Well, whatever. That Lucille girl then started staring at me straight on to get my attention, I guess, as I just rolled my eyes at her, wanting nothing to do with it. And then one day, I get tackled by 3 boys in the boys' locker room while I'm changing, not paying much attention, and get dragged to the boiler room in my boxers to find that boyfriend of hers with his arms all folded up, and Lucille looking all crazed and wild-eyed waiting for me down there. Yeah, this happened. Didn't know what the hell was going on, but then she started accusing me of having been a peeping Tom. She caught outside her bedroom window. A peeping Tom of all things. And when she told me to scat, I had went in and tried to have my way with her. And almost did until she started screaming for help. Crazy made up nonsense you see and hear in movies. She was all breathing hard with her eyes blazing out like headlights on a runaway car, telling that to this lumbering square-jawed idiot boyfriend of hers as he began stirring up with spit. I couldn't believe it. Hadn't spoken nor looked nor done anything to this damn dame in years. And now this is what I was getting. Well, that all-star hero and his 3 goons tried to rush me then. But little did they know I'm actually pretty good at taking care of myself in moments like these. Boy, I tell you, that moment when I heard her trying to make me out as a patsy and accuse me of being a rapist and a pervert, I tell you, I went nuts. Are you fucking kidding me? Are you little bitch? Fucking cunt. I ripped into those 4 like there was no tomorrow. Yeah, go ahead, send football players at me thinking it's gonna make a difference. In the streets, I'm a real hard-boiled egg. I've had punks coming at me from every which direction with baseball bats, brass knuckles, pipes, knives, tire irons, billy clubs, blackjacks, the works, and I've survived it all. At that moment, I really tore into those tools, and once I was done, I eyed Lucille like a madman and felt like turning on her next. That is until I noticed something very peculiar about her reaction to what I did to her lover boy there. She wasn't scared nor upset, not even concerned with the fact that I had really bashed her dreamboat up into pieces. I mean, I really almost did him in. And later someone had to call the hospital when he eventually dragged himself out of that boiler room after he came to. She wasn't even concerned with him in the slightest, not even enough to try and help him in that time of need. The poor guy having to drag himself out and have some teacher notice the condition he was in to call for help. Instead of doing everything you'd expect from a caring or even what just a person with some human decency would do, instead, all she did was stare at me like she had fallen head over heels in love, panting like an animal and eyeing me like a piece of meat. As for me, I felt completely beside myself. Are you fucking kidding me? So this is what it takes to really send a dame. She taught me everything there was to a woman and what sends them in that moment alone. And I felt like I didn't want any part of it. Well, I left then. Left her and those 4 idiots and went back to the boys' locker room to finish getting dressed. And for the next few weeks, everywhere I turned, I saw Lucille at some corner smiling like she couldn't get enough of me. Well, I'll tell ya. Somehow this bitch managed to break my heart twice. Now a second time. Showing me how despicable and heartless a woman can be. Really made me see how much all that lovey-dovey crap you see in the movies is really meant for the birds. And once I came to that understanding and saw her again in a different light, it was in a hallway and I saw her eyeing me like she just couldn't wait for me to give her the time. And at that moment, I decided to go ahead and do so. And I did. I figured I might as well get something out of it. But I really wasn't feeling it. Even though I had my cherry pop and all, I wasn't really feeling it one bit. So the next day, when she ran up to me before class to try and set up another date, I guess, I just dumped her right then and began eyeing some blonde, opening up a locker behind her, and made sure she'd notice so she'd get the fact that I found her as a lesser and had found something else better. Sam never saw Lucille after that. So, that's really the truth of it. Funny how when I was younger I had an opinion about women when it came to, well, you know, their situation in the world. How they're not exactly considered as equals. But now I see why things are the way they are. And now sometimes I can't even look at them as normal human beings because you need a heart and soul for that. And I know they don't have either of those since they're not capable of love. My own mother left me and my dad behind for another man, some J.P. Morgan type power broker from Wall Street, just because she got sick of the old couth and his moments. I mean, why stick with some broken down jalopy when you could be heading out into town in a brand new Cadillac convertible Cherry? Am I right? Sam then paused as he frowned so hard his mouth nearly fell clean right off his face. And then, having just thought about Lucille and his mother, Sam remembered the third woman in his life that really sealed his opinion about them, his judgment on women. This was strike 3 for Sam. This last woman was his strike 3. Ah, crud. Jessie something. What was her last name, actually? Jessie was short for something. What was it? I don't remember. Jessie something was the blonde Sam was now remembering. The next woman he was with after that whole Lucille business. What a nut job. What a loony dame she ended up being. As if getting with her on the rebound after Lucille was any better. For unlike Lucille, even though putting up with that broad's manipulative ways, at least he never had to get physical with her, and physical the bad way. All we did was fight, and I had never put my hands on a woman until I started courting this Jessie something. All she'd do was whine and moan about women's issues, as if she expected me to do something. Sorry, honey. The world is a lousy place for every last one of us. I'm still trying to fight my own battles, so forgive me, for I don't have the time then to take up fighting yours. I remember that one night she got drunk and broke a bottle over a table and tried to come after me with her nigger knife. I had never placed a hand on a woman until this moment, and once I did, I really let her have it. Pop goes the weasel and all. Crazy fucking dame. And what did making her bleed do? It turned her on. Actually turned her on. Can you believe that? And then she wanna blow me for an hour. And for the next 4 months of Sam and Jessie something's relationship, that was all that was to be expected. Jessie pushing Sam too far, and Sam putting her down by smacking her around senseless. Fuck women. Fuck all of them. She took it there. I didn't. And now I can see. Really, they need to be put down. Like the fucking mutts they are. Fucking dogs. Bitches. In the end, the only good they can ever amount to is being a trophy, really. Trophies for fellas like that quarterback high school hero who can place them up in his mantle to pride himself with. A prize for the creme de la creme in men, which has to be earned by fighting off other men with your fist. That or you can just buy them like some meat at a butcher's shop. And if you want the finest grade A meat, you can have it, as long as you got the dough for it. They're trophies and nothing more, and should be kept as that, since if left to their own devices, they're evil. I tell ya, evil. They're weak, heartless, and cruel. So what else can you expect from those ingredients? And then there's the fact that they can have a way with stupid men like that quarterback and his buddies there. And circumstances like those now scare me. Stupid men that would go to any length to be their knights in shining armor and save them, even if it takes them to the pits of hell to do so. Sam now thought of Jessie, and how that woman had also manipulated him in her own unique way. The things men will do for a woman going to hell and back, and question, was it all worth it? No way, no how. Fuck women. Either they're evil or too stupid to be such. A bunch of stupid animals like this ditzy dame Jane I got here. Sam then eyed Jane, who was staring at herself in the mirror while fixing up her hair, and then thought, I hate women. But then thought, but at least I guess Jane here is too stupid not to be trusted. Not the Lucille or Jessie something type. And I won't have to worry about her ever trying to pull the wool over my eyes and trying to use me to her own gain. And then felt at least some level of compassion for her.